As an individual growing up in a church with your family and friends for years, there comes a moment where it feels like you want to venture off on your own. On today's episode, we hear the story of one of our friends, Mylena, and how she was able to experience that, how it helped her draw closer to God, and the challenges that came with that. You're going to love this one. Hey everyone, welcome to Changing. My name is Donald Kelly and I'm your host, and I'm excited to talk to you today, and especially with my guest, Mylena Sutton. She's a great friend of mine and is someone with a powerful testimony of Jesus Christ, and I know her testimony is definitely going to help you. If this is your first time watching one of our videos or listening to our podcast, we ask you to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast as well as to leave us a rating and review. It would go a tremendous, long, amazing way. And it's very powerful when others are able to come behind you and read your testimony, so to speak, and see why you love the show. And it helps them to be able to subscribe to the podcast as well. Now, speaking about others' experience, Mylena talks about her experience growing up in church and also how this has impacted her when it came to the point where she was trying to venture off on her own, how she was able to go off and to find a new church home, and some of the challenges that came with that, but also some of the blessings. Hope you enjoy this conversation. Mylena, welcome to the show.
Indeed. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Of course. I think this podcast is one of my favorite shows to do because you hear so many amazing stories from individuals from all different backgrounds on their walk with Christ and how they've grown. And in particular, I'm excited to hear your story today because yours is one that maybe I think we've heard similar idea about how people lose their faith, but this is something totally different, and I think it's going to add a lot of unique insight to all of our spiritual growth. But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
First, my name is Mylena. Let's see. I live in the Northeast. I've been here for about 20 years. I'm a Southern girl. I was only going to stay here 5, and apparently I can't count because there's a lot more than 5. I work as a leadership and HR consultant, and I specialize in helping teams that have a lot of issues around conflict and misalignment. Frankly, I love what I do. I believe the work that I do in terms of helping organizations to create effective cultures is actually a calling. Because when you are unhappy at work, you're unhappy at life. Think about it. You spend 40 plus hours doing something you hate. You don't think that has a domino effect on your personal life and your family? I don't know how you could miss that. And I see the opportunity to help leaders work on those kinds of things. It is a blessing. It's a gift. And I can't think of any work I'd rather do, frankly.
I love that. I think there's so much power in that, Mylena. I think it's going to and can benefit and help so many people in so many ways. Because I think I have leadership responsibilities as well. And I've seen amongst other organizations I've been a part of where you're right. Those things are not addressed and it just becomes a domino effect because it affects the work relationship, the personal life, the family life. And yeah, anyways.
Absolutely, well, it is. In domino effect.
Those people need to change, so you can help them change that way. Hopefully,
I hope so, right?
Hopefully today you can help a couple of us change. And I want to dive into the story because it's very powerful in a sense. Like many of us start off, maybe our family bring us to church, or we got introduced as a young age, or in our adulthood we start going to church. We find God, and we build a relationship with Christ. Some of us, for different reasons or another, may not necessarily keep with that. Maybe we get to an age of adolescence and teenage years, and we decide that we don't want to do a church thing, or perhaps we get in adulthood and something life-changing alters our course, and we decide to do something different. Well, no matter what it is, we have those experiences. In your case, you actually left church. And I want to know a little bit more about that. What led to that? Tell us a little bit more about your background, your spiritual upbringing, so to speak, how you came into church, and then what prompted you to leave. And then, let's go into there. So
sure. My story is a funny one because I grew up in the South, and people automatically assume Bible Belt, and they have a whole lot of things in their minds about what that absolutely means. And I'm like, yes. I hate to disappoint you, but so essentially I grew up in the South, Georgia in particular. I grew up Baptist, and my family, I can't speak to other people's families, but for me, what I learned about church early on, church was a great source of community. it was where I got to know not only my family a little bit more, but the whole neighborhood, and my church in particular was the neighborhood where my parents, in particular, my mother's side of the family, grew up and lived. So every Sunday, though the household where I lived was about maybe a half hour away, going to church was like a family reunion every Sunday. It was great. And then my great grandma was still living at the time. She made dinner, all of that good stuff. But what was interesting about it was that it was really about community for me. And I really appreciated that. I enjoyed that. But in terms of my home life, we weren't necessarily conservative people in the way that you think of. It was almost like church was the thing that we do on Sundays, if that makes sense. We would go to church, and after church, we would hang out at my grandparents' house, go back to our lives, and we might talk about God here or there, but that just wasn't our life. And then once I got ready to go to college, believe it or not, I don't know what happened, but when I got ready to go to college, I left my family church and I started going to a mega church in Atlanta. And it was, believe it or not, despite my family's rejection, my family was very upset about that. Because I'm the first in my family.
Was that because you left the family church, or was it because of was it a different denomination, or what was it that
I think it was a couple of things. I was the first person in my family to go off to college. And I think they saw that as a double-barreled identity shift. Like, she's leaving us to become one of them, and then she joined the hoity-toity big church uptown. So I don't think they were hearing that at all. But what I loved about going to this huge church was that it allowed me to do something that I couldn't do in church growing up. It allowed me to learn to explore praise and worship without worrying about who's watching me. If I decided to sing, if I decided that something was on my mind, I wanted to go to the altar and pray. If a tear dared escape from my eyes, I didn't have to worry about somebody going, "What's on your mind?" I didn't have to worry about that. And so I love the anonymity of a really large church. I really loved it. As a matter of fact, when I left Atlanta in 2000, I went to grad school in Kansas. And for the first couple of years, believe it or not, I would mail my tithes and stuff back to my home church because I didn't find a place in Kansas that I really liked. And my pastor sold CDs back when we were selling CDs, so I could stay connected that way. And, that was it. And what I grew up in with respect to that larger church, it was a different kind of connection to church. It's kind of hard to describe, but it was a place I wanted to be, though it had nothing to do with my family. And by the same token, it started me to building this relationship where I saw this idea of obedience to God as becoming very, very critical and very crucial. But part of that obedience to God, I think, was also overlaid with fear. And I'll give you an example. When I say fear, too, it was fear without grace also. Like, one time I was in school and I don't know what happened, but I didn't pay my tithes one particular week and my car broke down. I swear to God, God killed my car. Like, God is mad. And, because I didn't send the tithes, the car broke down. Like, but, Mylena, your car really is like 10 years old. It got problems, but you're going to blame that on God. Totally blame that on God. So,
he's a catch-all. He's a catch-all.
So what happened after that, I left and I moved here in the year 2002. And it took me about a year or two to find a church that I liked. So got here, joined another church that was a kind of mega church as well. And I don't know.
Here being the Northeast, by the way.
Say it again?
Here being the Northeast, where you are currently.
Yes, definitely here. As a matter of fact, New Jersey in particular. So moved here, find a church, and it's also rather large. And I don't know if the shift was in me or if it was something else. But I was at the church, I think, for about 4 or 5 years. And I started noticing some things with respect to church, the sermons, that I was starting to feel a disconnect. And I'm not sure what what was the basis of that? Even to this day, I don't know. But I will say it probably had something to do with this. There came a point where our pastor was preaching a sermon, and the series was What a Woman Needs to Know About a Man. And in one of it was several weeks, and in one of the series, the hook was just fry the chicken. And I remember being so offended by the entire series, but that one particular Sunday, I was like, I'm done. So I leave. And when I leave, I noticed several other women were walking out too. And I'm like, okay. So fast forward a couple more days, there's an older couple in the church who I love dearly. I reached out to them to go, is it just me, or did you think that sermon series, particularly that last one, was out of line? And so they gave me their perspective on what they thought the issue was. And it was almost like, don't take it to heart. You know, they have some challenges. And there were two things. My first thought was the way that came across. I felt like he was bullying his wife from the pulpit. On the other hand, I also thought, what if some other guy hears that and tries to do that to their wife? And then last but not least, I was like, and as a result of that, if I were in a relationship looking to get married, I don't know if I would trust his counsel. So you have those three things. Plus, there were some other changes in the church that weren't quite sitting well for me. And I decided that if my pastor was someone I didn't respect, what was the point in going to church? So I left. And I kept waiting for God to kill my car again. Because, you know, the way I had come to understand
that's the way
God,
he gets your attention.
yeah, it's like, you got to follow the rules, follow the rules, follow the rules. And it was amazing. I left, and like a year went by, and my car was still working. The bottom did not fall out of my life. I could pay my bills. I was healthy. I'm like, okay, so maybe I need to re-examine how I framed God, because maybe the holy boogeyman ain't coming, you know? And it turned into an interesting transition. I went from leaving a church where I was frustrated at the direction of the church and the sermon to being absolutely terrified of what was going to happen, because I felt like God was going to be angry with me for leaving. And then coming to a place where I was like, it's been a few years and I haven't tithed in this whole time. I haven't gone to church. I hadn't even done so much as listen to church on the radio, and I'm okay. And it was something about that realization that helped me to see that God was not out to get me. It wasn't, I don't know why I'm getting emotional about this, but it was like, when we say that God's plan for us is good, it helped me to see that, because in that, I did not expect that. In that phase in my life, I wasn't doing any of the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And the grace was just amazing for me. And then when I look at my family background, I'm not bashing my family at all. Don't hear that. But when I think about the fact that I decided that I wanted to start my own business, there were things I wanted to do with my life, but I didn't have what I thought were role models on how to do these things. I also came from a working class family. So the idea that I would take on the risk of starting a business, you've got to be kidding me, because there was no safety net for that. If I failed, I hit the ground. But what I learned in that process, it's like, you know what? I'm going to give my best years of my life to my hopes and to my dreams. So Amen. Fast forward to about 2008. I have registered my business. As a matter of fact, I registered my business as an official thing, an entity, if you will, in 2007. And I go to a conference, and it's a one-day event over in Philadelphia, and the speaker was great. So I do what I always do when I'm in settings like that. I take my journal and I zone out. And you think I'm taking notes? No, I'm writing in my journal my own thing. And I'm telling God, I want more time to focus on the thing that matters to me. Donald, I kid you not, I was fired from my job the very next day. I was like, God, that ain't what I meant. That is not what I meant. You know, God, you never seen me.
Hold on. This is I wanted some time in the evening.
Yeah, I was like, wait a
Not the
minute.
whole day.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm looking back through the journal entry going, whoa, that's not what it meant. But I don't think I ever would have had the courage to actually quit. I just never would have, because I had what we call that good government job. It was great benefit. It was going to be steady. I wasn't happy, but I was steady. I was stable. So with that being said, that was ironically when the economy crashed back in 2008.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I got a mortgage to pay. I got this, I got that. And I don't have a job. That's the one thing I don't have. But what I knew was that ultimately I didn't want a job. I really was like, look, I'm already not working. Let's take this time to focus on what I really want to do with my life. And as I focused there, then it became, God, you remember that grace I realized that I got after a couple of years? I'm going to need a lot more of that, because it's going to be me and you, because I'm going to be building the plane while it's flying. And
Amen.
With that being said, that's really how I actually made my first steps as an entrepreneur. The business was registered, but I had not done anything other than come up with my concept for what I wanted it to be. I was resting on the idea that, I have a job, I'll get to it a little bit at a time. But honestly, I don't know if I ever would have done it. And so then the actual push out of the nest, if you will, that nest of comfort, it really changed my life in a whole nother way, because I go from God is the boogeyman to, okay, he's not out to get me, to he kicked me out of my job, and now we're building a business. And the beauty of that is, since I've been growing my business, I can't begin to tell you how many mistakes I've made, and they didn't completely take me out. I have not only made tons of mistakes, there have been opportunities that I know that I wasn't the person who engineered all of those. I did my best, but if you look at the math, so to speak, it made no sense in some ways that certain things would land for me the way that they did. I was just doing the very best I could. And what I've learned in the years since I've been working on my business consistently, I started doing this, like I said, 2007. 2008. For a while, I was doing some part-time work while I was trying to grow. And then I've been completely full-time in this actually since 2014. And what I have learned from God, it has turned more and more and more to this thing where I trust that I'm going to be okay. And I trust that as my perspective and as my vision grows and as my hopefulness grows about life, I am increasingly okay and I get better and better. But the one thing that I think really has come to define my relationship with God right now is that whereas when I was growing up, I used to see being connected to God as a function of community. I still see that now. But what I am clear about is my relationship with God and my relationship with the church are two very different things. I can walk away from church and still be connected to God. It doesn't mean that I want to abandon church. As a matter of fact, the church I'm a part of now, I absolutely love my church. I have a great time with those people. They tolerate me because I am the person who's quite interesting in church. I bring up the weird questions. And what I've learned through my own process is that I can be the inquisitive person I am. I can be a bit non-traditional, and I can be all of those things and still be connected to God. I can have a fellowship with my church family that I enjoy, and I can live my life without fear. And for me, that was huge, because I think not only running my business by myself is it a challenge, but also as I look to think about the legacy that I want to leave, how I want to be regarded, how I want to contribute to the world. I need the fearlessness that comes with the faith that I have, because if you look at all of the things that are in the world around us, frankly, it's very easy to become overwhelmed. And it is very easy to find all of the reasons why you think you can't do something. And for me, the idea that I hold on to that I talked about earlier, just acknowledging that God's plan for me is good. And when I hold on to that, nothing is impossible. It might mean some work, but it does not mean that I can't have it. It doesn't mean that I can't do it. And if I had to say that there was anything that undergirds me right now, is the idea that I know despite my imperfections, despite the mistakes that I make, no matter what I do, I cannot escape God. God is going to be there, and no matter where I go, whether I ascend or descend, God is going to be there, and I'm going to be absolutely okay. And for me, just that shift away from fear has probably been the best thing about getting to know God intimately that could have ever happened to me.
I love this. This is so powerful. I think there's so many different insights in this. I'm pulling away so many things I can apply to my spiritual journey now with God and from this conversation. And I know that so many people are getting so much from this. Mylene, I have nothing else to say on top of this. This is just like pure perfection. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing something that means so much to you today with us, to helping us to in our path and our journey. And I know there are others out there who feel the same way. And I think sometimes we make that association that church is God. And though it's good to be in the church, we need to make sure we first have our relationship with God. And that's going to help us with as we walk. Because like we saw over the past 2 years, many of us physically didn't get to church. But that doesn't mean our relationship with God ended. We were able to communicate and to worship with him at home. And then we found virtual ways to do so. But it's powerful, and I'm just grateful to hear that message. And thank you for sharing that testimony and helping us with our journey today.
Indeed. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
If folks want to get connected to you, to learn about you from your business standpoint, or just to get to know another sister in Christ, how do they go about doing so?
Actually, I have two websites, my first and last name, MylenaSutton.com, or they can look for me on my business site at VoltageVista.com. And that's pretty much it. Both of them will bring you to me.
Mylena, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
That was Mylena Sutton, and I'm super grateful that she was able to come on the show today and to share her testimony. I know it's challenging sometimes to be that vulnerable and to share those insights, and I'm super grateful for the thoughts that she shared with us and the message that she brought. If there's something in that message that can help you or help anyone, somebody you know, I encourage you to act on that as well as to share that message with them. There's power in testimonies of others, and I'm grateful that she was able to bring that information. Where 2 or 3 gathered, with the Spirit's there, and I'm here, and Mylena was here, and you're here. So hopefully the Spirit was here with you and was able to impact your life. If you need help, you need prayer, you need guidance, just to chat with someone, feel free to reach out to me. You can find my information in the show notes. You can also email me, donaldckelly09@gmail.com. That's my personal email. That's donaldckelly09@gmail.com. I'm truly grateful for you. I'm super thankful for the opportunity I had to talk to my good friend Mylena. And also, I encourage you to go connect with her. Find her information in the show notes. Check out her business and see if there's an opportunity for you to be able to work with her, or if you can recommend her to someone. As always, I want when Heavenly Father come back that you and I are on the right side with him. I'm super grateful to have you in our midst, super grateful for your testimony, and super grateful for your walk with Christ. Thank you so much, and hope you have a blessed day.
I guess when the Lord wants to teach you something, he can be pretty persuasive. Just ask Jonah the prophet about, how persuasive the Lord can be at getting you to do what he wants you to do,
Stay tuned for a scene from our next episode.